has a little bit to do before they leave. I want them to hear this. As you're leaving, put your ears on, still listen. That Pacific Trade Agreement will have to do with pastors marrying in their own church. Because that Pacific Trade Agreement puts another jurisdiction for people outside America that can sue individuals inside this country. And you know who gets to be the jurisdiction? Not our courts, not American courts. They appoint judges of their own jurisdiction, and if they feel that they are diminished by a standard held by an individual, they can sue you. And they will do it on Agenda 21 also. And that's something we've talked about for a very long time. Agenda 21 is something to be enforced on everybody. It has to do with 7-inch weeds in your yard. That's Agenda 21. It has to do with the International Maintenance Code that these jurisdictions, the townships, force on people. I can prove it to you. I've got paperwork that says International Maintenance Code. It doesn't say Agenda 21, but that's where International Maintenance Code came, is from Agenda 21. This Pacific Trade Agreement authorizes the lawsuits in a jurisdiction that is unconstitutional or supra-constitutional, beyond the Constitution, not the judges that we have authorized by our courts. And this is why it's so important. This is why I have to challenge Ted Cruz. It is beyond my ability to get it figured out. Thanks for coming, Dorothy, folks. I'm going to show a couple of things, a couple of YouTubes. They're not long on the Pacific Trade Agreement. We're probably going to get done pretty early tonight. Before I show those, I want to get to some questions with you folks, and that will stimulate some things. And it's, a lot of times the YouTube part doesn't get to our questions. Joe, would you take the microphone around? Make sure the green light is on. You have a question about Ted Cruz and what I'm saying? I would like the discussion. If that green light is on, it should be working. Let me see it. What it was before. Green light, green light. Hello, testing 1, 2.
No, I heard.
No, you was hearing this one. Okay, we're just going to have you stand up and talk loud. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. We're going to have to get us another one. I'm challenging Ted Cruz on why he voted for fast track authority. Now, I have heard Sean Hannity challenge Rand Paul on the Iran-Corker agreement. Why didn't you just let the Senate take care of it with advice and consent? Rand Paul, who is supposed to be this constitutional libertarian who understands things, and I think he is for the most part, but this answer bothered me, folks. Well, he would have just called it a treaty. Okay. What does Black's Law Dictionary call a treaty? What if these papers that I handed out to you, 2 different sources, call a agreement between 2 international countries a treaty? So if you can bypass the advice and consent clause to get a treaty passed, it becomes, and this is in the paperwork, I'm not going to go through all that paperwork, you can read it, it's not long. That treaty becomes the supreme law of the land. It becomes larger than our Constitution. Some say that this Pacific Trade Agreement is transnational and that it is supra, or over and above, our Constitution, and we have, once that is ratified or gone through the process now that we have enabled 51 votes to do, this is why it's so important. It's why I'm holding Ted Cruz accountable. Once that happens, we are no longer the United States of America. We are one nation of many, and we do not have our own governing alliance being the Constitution. That's why when I say the pledge, and I will say I always remember those who have fallen in favor of that flag, it is why I pledge. But now I pledge to restore the Republic, or give it that effort. I'm doing that tonight. I'm trying to get the information out there, so we challenge Ted Cruz. I want to know, Ted, if you Google, and whoever listens to this on YouTube, Google Ted and Nancy's Excellent Adventure. Now, I sent this to Carly Fioriano. And I want her to read those writings that I did, because I challenged Ted Cruz on the fast track authority rendering the supermajority of advice and consent down to 51 votes. And I said in that messaging that that is a third rail, and when you touch a third rail, you are electrocuted politically. And I mean it, as far as what my participation is. Now the thing about Carly is she opposed that treaty. She understands all those things about transnationalism and the Constitution not being the authority in court. She understands all of that. But what's not clear to me about Carly Fiorina, and this is why I sent one of her campaign managers here in the state a request to have her answer. Did she understand that the fast track authority and what Ted Cruz did? Because if she makes an issue of that, that's big time for her. And I actually think that Carly Fiorina can re-oxygenize the constitutional conservatives. I was very proud of what she had to say, and I was very proud of her willingness to go after Hillary. And I'm very sure that Bill Clinton wants Jeb Bush to run against Hillary with Donald being the trump card that elects Hillary. I'm real sure that that's what that phone conversation was 2 weeks before he announced. And I'm very sure, and I can't prove this, I don't have the time nor the resources to go into the Clinton Foundation and see just who they're donating to. I wonder, I'm kind of sure of it, that Donald Trump isn't spending his own money. I know he has it to spend, but I think he's been promised. I think he's been promised. And I'm just going to come out and say what I think because I think it and I don't believe and not saying what you... Donald Trump is a hired hitman tactic of Bill Clinton to ensure that he gets back in the White House. His wife will be president under his plan. And I'm very discouraged about this, folks. You know, we don't have a lot of folks coming out anymore. That's true. Probably had a little bit to do with some of the dissatisfaction that we all had with the Republican Party. Might have had a little bit to do with what I did with Mitt Romney. But I think it has more to do with people not believing anymore that they can get something accomplished. Because all across the Tea Parties, all across the state, because I'm being made aware of it, and all across the nation, the numbers are down. We've settled back down into not a comfort zone, because people like us aren't comfortable with it, but we've settled back down to a reality that we believe that this thing is going to happen and we can't rescue it. The remedy we're reaching for is unreachable. And I understand that. And that's why people don't really want to sacrifice their time to come out and listen to a fellow rant and rave about reaching for remedy. But I'm going to tell you, and it would only be rant and raving if it were that we would not hold to core principles over and above the disappointment I have about challenging Ted Cruz. I'm challenging him on fast track authority. The Pacific Trade Agreement redefines this country. I'm not going to sit back down into my disbelief that we can do anything about it. And that may be true. I'm not going to sit back down there and be comfortable with that position that a fellow the other day, pastor, said to me, I'm just going to let God take care of this. He used to be a Tea Party activist. You've heard what I said, and I'll say it again in case some folks get to hear this for the first time. He said, Dennis, I'm just going to let God take care of it. And it angered me, because I've been dealing with this for a long time, trying to motivate Christians to get up and get out of the comfort of the pews and try to reach for remedy, as I think we are. So I said to him, when he said, I'm just going to let God take care of it, I was angered, and I said, you know something, God doesn't need your permission to take care of it. You better get on your knees, and you better pray that he doesn't have to take care of it because you won't. And that's the position I take myself. I pray that God doesn't have to take care of the consequences that this country would face simply because I won't sacrifice sometime. And I have an inability to speak, folks. I hear all the time that I do well. But you got to know that when I'm sitting an hour before this every Friday night, I'm scared. I fear. And I'm not afraid of much. If you know me over the period of my life, you'll know I'm not afraid of much. But what I fear an hour before this caucus is that I don't bring something good enough to honor your getting out and coming. That I feel the pressure of. And I think that if I give you my core principles of constitutional conservatism, that may make it worth your while, because I believe you're like that. And I will hold Ted Cruz accountable. And Carly Fiorina is looking very good to me right now, because she will be the thing that can reoxygenate the grassroots constitutional conservatives and counter that tactic that Donald Trump has been employed by Bill Clinton to do. Third party Ross Perot tactic. We better understand it, folks. And we better stop this notion that, well, I'm going to choose this guy, this guy, this guy, or this guy, and they're all good. I kind of, there's a lot that I like. I'm not going to name any more of them. And you have every right in the world to like the ones you like. But we better understand the consequences that in these primaries across 50 states, 57 states, if the president can do it, I can do it too. But I did it on purpose. He didn't. Across these 50 states, if the consequence on a split up, diverse electorate when it comes to constitutional conservatives, with the Republican establishment staying solid behind Jeb Bush, the consequence of that means that Jeb Bush comes out of the smoke, and Hillary faces him with Donald Trump going into the third party, and it guarantees that 6 out of 10 people will vote against Hillary Clinton, and she will be crowned the queen. It should motivate you. I'm challenging folks to consider very carefully who can get this accomplished. I don't know what's going on with Ted Cruz, folks. I'm not getting an answer from him. Nobody is talking about this. But you folks challenge me, and you take me to task. I know George does, Steve does. A lot of times Steve's over there Googling the things I say when I say them. He's probably doing it tonight. Right. And that's okay. I know you're going to challenge me on this fast track authority, but nobody else is talking about it, and that scares me. Like I told you, I don't fear a whole lot, but I am fearful of a constitutional conservative, so-called, that we claim to be across this country will not hold Ted Cruz accountable for fast track authority. And I want Carly Fiorina to bring it up nationally. I'm asking her to bring it up nationally. Why render the Constitution neutralized in a treaty agreement? Why do that, Ted Cruz? See, it would be advantageous to her if she used it. I don't know that she will, but if she ends up doing it, you folks and you folks on YouTube will know where it came from, because nobody else is talking about it. And I did send this through her handlers to her, and she will get it. She's coming to Michigan, and I think it's on the September 15th, something like that. We'll find out. So if you have questions, just ask away. It'll cause us to stay a little longer. Otherwise, we'll have an early night. We're going to do a couple of videos, YouTube's on treaties, and on the Pacific Trade Agreement specifically, and why President Obama wants it. And it probably, I think it does have some consequences in there. Some of the things I told you about the jurisdictions. See, the corporations, international corporations, they get to appoint the judges from their own lawyers. A judge appointed by a corporate international corporation gets to appoint their own judge. That they come, and Charlie, they come. You get a letter in the mail. You are being sued by the international so-and-so of such and such. And you don't go to a constitutional jurisdiction with a jury of your peers. That international corporation of so-and-so and such and such is going to take you into a jurisdiction with a judge that they appointed. That's what you're going to find out in the language of this Pacific Trade Agreement that Ted Cruz authorized through fast track. Ted, please give me an answer to this. Because the difference between our candidates right now is going to kill us. the split in our support across the country is going to see to it that the tactic that Bill Clinton has employed with Donald Trump is going to be a successful one. Carla Fiorina hit it last night when she said to everybody else in the junior varsity debate, I call it, she said, Bill Clinton, I didn't get a call from Bill Clinton. Did any of you guys? I mean, she was about ready to unload. I think she knows. I think she understands. But I want people talking about Ross Perot and Donald Trump. I do. Hopefully she brings that. So give me a question, folks, or otherwise we'll just go to the YouTubes. Somebody challenge me on something. Steve, you got something on your mind? Challenge me. George, tell me what you think.
Well, how did you like the little dust up between Paul and Christie?
I think it shows the temperament of Chris Christie.
What, you mean arrogant and self-centered?
Yeah, you said that.
And I'll stand by it?
Yeah, and okay, and he is that. He can't take criticism very well at all. He said Rand Paul is blowing hot air. You know, you can disagree with Rand Paul. He's not blowing hot air.
He's not blowing hot air. He said the same thing I've said and you've said for a long time. Get a warrant.
Get a warrant. Now, Chris Christie is vying for that established position, but he won't be in there long. I'm thinking that John Kasich, Christie, and a couple of the other ones got in the race so that they could be tapped by Jeb Bush for the VP. But I've got some information for you because I'm so good at information. Quit taking my information away. Steve said, what about our governor? Well, I have some information that would indicate that that meeting that Mitt Romney had with Jeb Bush, the name Rick Snyder came up as VP. And at that time, I was communicating with Mitt Romney via email. I can show him to you. Trying to get him to get back in the race and become more of a bulldog that he didn't do before. I was trying to get him to do that. And I talked to Ron Weiser about this. He says it'll never happen. The money class has already been directed to Jeb Bush. He has already been chosen the golden boy. So I think that meeting was a determination on whether or not Mitt Romney would support a Rick Snyder or would vie for the vice presidential nomination. I think Jeb was honoring Mitt with that notion. And Mitt said, I'm guessing here, folks, he didn't tell me any of this. And I am guessing, but I think it's probably a good scenario. Mitt said, no, I'm going to spend time with my family. I'm not going to get involved again. And I think it was the right thing to do. My advice to him was to run for president, not to tag along as vice president under Jeb Bush, a neocon. See, Rand Paul was right about the neocons. He just didn't exercise the definition too well. I have every Friday night here for the last probably 6 months about the consequences of the war class neoconservatives who want to protect that oil purchased by dollars. That's my definition of neocon. And I think that a Ted Cruz wouldn't be that. I think that a Rand Paul definitely wouldn't be that. I think that Carla Fiorina would not be that. And that's why I think if they happen to get the nomination, anybody other than Jeb Bush gets the nomination, the third party tactic of Donald Trump will not work. If we have that constitutional conservative actually running, and it couldn't be Mitt Romney, and I understand that now. I do understand that now. And so did Mitt, by the way. If we have that constitutional conservative get the nomination, the military industrial complex dash neocons who are lobbied by them will have their, I started to say boy, and there's a racial connotation to that, so I'm not going to use the word boy. They will have their person in the White House suspend these elections. Because, and I'm saying that that's what I think will happen if we have success in getting a constitutional conservative nominated as a Republican nominee. Or they may try the brokered convention. But you know what? We can block, we've got enough people in place, and that's due in large part to Campaign for Liberty, and God bless them for all their efforts. We parted our ways a little bit. But I don't think they can get that brokered convention done. And they are debating right now. It's like a gambling thing. They don't know how much to put on it. I don't think they can get it done. So the only thing that they can do, if they determine they can't do a brokered convention, if we have a constitutional conservative running as the Republican nominee, is suspend the elections. What does the president have to have in order to declare martial law? An event. What did the CIA just do? A couple of months back. They intervened my opinion, by the lives of 239 people on that Malaysia 370, and I think it all ties in, so that we don't have another 9/11. So I understand that this threat is still there. So in order for the president to declare martial law, suspend the elections, and he doesn't continue to be a third-term president, by the way, because the military rules under martial law. He becomes a commander-in-chief, that is true, but he doesn't have the powers of the president anymore. There is no civilian authority under martial law. They would need an event. And I'm just going to put this out there because I think it. What city is expendable? What city borders an international border that would carry the weather patterns out of the country? See, all the weather comes from the southwest. Just about 90% of our weather will come out of the southwest. So it wouldn't be a border on our southern border. It wouldn't be a city on our southern border, because if that city was deemed to be expendable for such a thing as maybe a dirty bomb, nuclear dirty bomb, that would come back on us. Or Windsor. What city is expendable for a dirty bomb? Or Windsor. What's Windsor's sister city? Or Toronto. Maybe Buffalo, Toronto.
Yeah.
But I think Detroit has progressed so badly
Then it wouldn't be a loss.
it wouldn't be such a loss, and that's the human tragedy of thinking such a thing. I feel guilty about that. But I don't put it past these world control minded people who have done this thing called the cremation of care. They don't care. They've had to cremate their care. Cremate. It's a ceremony called the cremation of care. I believe that goes on. And so without care, you can accomplish such things for the better good of the masses in their minds. And it does a two-edged sword. It accomplishes a purpose unthinkable in Detroit. So if there is to be a nuclear event, dirty bomb, that gives the causality for martial law, God help Detroit. God help Detroit.